content.
Right. So I'll be live on both.
Live on both.
Yeah. So I'm live now on Facebook as well, and you are also audible as you have tested, and people have commented back in my trial call that it is audible. So great.
Great.
Great guys. So
Well,
let's wait people
as
to
as
join
great as it can be.
Yeah, Arvinder has joined. Yeah, Arvinder, can you hear Victoria's voice?
Can you hear me, Arvinder?
Yeah. Victoria, can you say something?
Good morning to everybody. How are you this morning?
Great, great. Hi, Nandini. Hi, Arvinder. So, with me, Victoria is also available on Skype, guys. So, I'll just show you. She is available on Skype. Here you see, she is available on Skype. We are recording the Skype call also, and that video also will upload in YouTube and on Facebook also. And this recording also will be available. So today the topic is very important. We know that we are going with a global crisis. Yes, Victoria.
Very important indeed. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes. All can hear. If you guys can respond whether you can hear Victoria or not. Deepa, Arvinder. Yeah. So already they have confirmed that it is audible. So we'll wait for some more time for people to join in.
No problem.
And then we'll go ahead with our topics. So guys, by that time you can just see the description of this particular live session, and we have proposed a few subtopics, and we'll be taking up the questions also which you have raised through personal messages, and in Messenger and WhatsApp also I have received a few questions. So we'll be taking those questions as well after we cover up our topic.
Okay, right. So Kalyan, I've got a couple of people have just texted me to find out how they can join the session. So I'm just going to tell them to go to FB.
Yeah, ask them to search for Kalyan or Sai Solution. They will see the live session going on.
Yep.
Yes. So guys, we are in a state of being challenged with technology, and being challenged by technology and solving the technology using the technology. So we are using the Skype and Facebook both to sort this co-hosting problem. So Facebook is not allowing us to go for a co-hosting. Since morning we are trying. Never mind, we both are live and we'll be taking up the topics and your questions both. Stay tuned, please. People are joining in. We'll start in another 3 minutes. Now it is 9:37, 9:40 we'll start with our topics. Hi, Harminder.
We need to.
Hello. Yeah, Victoria.
We need to get in touch with Facebook and find out what their problem is.
Yeah, definitely. We need to figure that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Gerard also seems to have joined.
Great.
Yeah.
Hello, Gerard. Glad you've joined. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Most frustrating.
If he's not live, we'll definitely hear you in the recordings. Yeah.
Great.
Right, guys. So now it's 38. People are joining in. Around 25 people I see Hi, Gurmeet. Good morning, and you all guys can say hi to Victoria also. She is there. Her video is not coming up, but you will be able to hear her. And
I'm
we
here.
are
I'm in the
live.
background.
Yeah, yeah. So we are on Skype also and Facebook also. You are able to hear. And for those who has just joined, I'll just show you that Victoria is Victoria. You can wave them. They can see you. Yes, yes,
Hello.
yes. Great, great.
I'm
Hi,
here.
Sukhvinder. Yeah, yeah. So
Technology has let
all
us
are saying
down.
hi to you. Yeah, great. So we'll be having the recordings from both Skype and Facebook, and we'll be having the recordings available. Right? It's just 1 minute, so we'll start with the topic. By that time, you can just go through the topics in the description, the subtopics of the main topic, clarity on Corona. Yeah, hi Dolly. Good morning. Hi Poonam. Very good morning. Very interesting and thoughtful comments from you on our advertisement, organic advertisement, definitely. So great. So we'll definitely go for simplifying the concepts that we propose, but without dilution. That's our promise. Because pure nature cure is known for its depthness of understanding. So dilution will be unjustified.
No,
Yeah,
no
Gurmeet, we can
dilution.
do a Skype conference also sometime else. Maybe tomorrow itself we can plan it because all of our travels are postponed and cancelled. So I had some travel
Oh,
plan tomorrow. That's why Sunday we could not choose. Could not so go for Sunday. So we can do a Skype conference tomorrow, perhaps, if
yep.
Victoria is available for some
Mm,
time.
yep.
Right. So there are proposals, Victoria, of making a Skype conference because Skype now
Yes.
allows 50 people joining together. So you can do
Yes.
a Skype conference also planned.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So let's go ahead, guys, with the topic. Victoria, will you introduce yourself for the people, those who don't know? And I am Kalyan from Sai Solution, and I welcome all of you. And Victoria, over to you.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon if you're tuning in from Australia or somewhere else in the world. My name is Victoria Moran. I'm based here in Australia. I am a nature cure practitioner, and I work under the name Moran Pure Naturopathy. And Kalyan and I have been working together for quite some time now on everything relevant to nature cure. So today we're going to discuss the current world crisis that is going on and give you some clarity on exactly what actually is going on. And we will be talking according to the philosophy of nature cure, which is purely scientific. There is no hocus pocus or magic or anything going on here. This is a scientific discussion, and we'll prove to you by the theories and the information we're going to give you what's going on. So hang in there, hold in there, and enjoy the information. It's going to be really great.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria, for that. So I'll start with a bit of philosophical background of nature cure science and pure nature cure science rather. Why we stress upon this pure word? Because this starts with the understanding. The pure nature cure approach starts with the understanding, then the implementation. So we never go for prescription first approach. It's basically the education that we focus primarily. Now, coming to the current scenario of the world, let's try and understand three aspects here. One is the symptomatic discomforts that the people are going through, and second is the management procedure that are being adopted, and the third and most importantly the framework, the philosophical framework and scientific background of the scenario. Right. So the symptomatic discomfort is very much understandable that the symptomatic discomfort is really problematic, and people are those who are undergoing this problem that is really a huge problem for them, and with the fear, that problem gets intensified. And the management which are being proposed till the time any medicine is introduced are absolutely in sync with nature cure proposals, like stay at home, take rest, be relaxed. All these proposals are basically resting and conserving your vitality. And those who know nature cure science, it is based on the vitality conservation. More we conserve vitality. See, the basic framework. Now, coming to the framework of nature cure and overall nature, the nature is constructed with two basic principles. One is the conservation of energy of any system, which may be organism or any artificial system. The conservation is the primary aspect, and the second is the symmetry. So all these things in nature cure term we call voice of the organism and the law of unity. If we support these two aspects, if we support the voice of the organism and the law of unity, we end up conserving a lot of vitality. Right. So if we go on in that direction, ultimately the discomforts also will come down. If we just target the discomfort, symptomatic discomfort, then the cause which is causing will come to that understanding also, how this happens, how the toxin gets gathered together because of the non-conserving vitality or over-engagement of vitality. So the problem is in the framework. That is the main reason to initiate this particular conversation, because the symptoms are identified, the management is also very much identified, as till the time we have. Yeah, the volume is low. Is it better, guys, now? Somebody reported that the volume is very low. So I kept it near my Skype device for Victoria's voice. No, anyway, coming back to the topic. Yeah. So I'll bring that near to you, Victoria, when we'll continue.
Okay.
Right. So here the mismatching of the framework is the main reason of this initiative, to make a clarity about what is happening and why it is happening. Now, primary aspect is the germ theory and the cellular theory understanding. The germ theory proposes that the cause is the infection, and cellular theory proposes that the cause is the toxemia. Infection is identified there, but infection is just an effect. Now let's try and understand. So in our life, I was talking about the conservation vis-a-vis the voice of the organism. In our life, we have choices available, the options available to choose, right? Now, if we choose something which needs more energy versus something which needs lesser energy, the lesser energy is most suitable, the lesser energy engagement is most suitable under that science of conservation and symmetry. So, for example, the food is very, yeah, thanks Satanu, thanks for joining, thanks Ishu. So yeah, I was talking about the food aspect. Food aspect is very easy aspect to understand the voice of the organism. So we can take the example of mango and mango jam. Mango is one aspect which gives us the pleasure. Mango jam also, contrary, we get the pleasure. But here we need to understand the natural mapping of mango with our taste buds and mango jam with our taste buds. Mango is not produced to please us. Naturally, we map ourselves and get the pleasure. This is the natural mapping, and this is the sign that we conserve vitality in consumption of mango. Now, mango jam is definitely, the objective of mango jam is to please us. There, the natural mapping is not available, and mango jam definitely depletes more vitality from us comparing to the mango. So like this, small incidences of over engagement of vitality depletes our vitality. So we have lesser energy inside to eliminate the toxin. Those are getting produced and accumulated within the body. When we undergo that kind of accumulation state, the accumulation of the toxin in the body causing the toxemia. Right, Dhruv. Thanks, Megla. Thanks, Dhruv, confirming that you can hear us. Great. So coming back to the toxemia, when we undergo a state called toxemia, that means a toxin accumulated in the body and flowing in the blood. That time we see lot of effects as symptoms. One of the effects is the infection. Now, germ theory says that the infection causes the disease, which is absolutely unscientific, because the infection means infestation by pathogens or microorganisms. Now, organisms are primarily attracted by their food. Without food, they don't have any interest in any environment. So the right condition for them, the food, which is in our case, the toxin inside the blood, inside the body. If there is toxin, then this discomforting situations will arrive, and the infection is a byproduct in the process. So one thing, that discomfort is not caused by the germs or the virus or the pathogens or the microorganism, whatever you call it, it is just organism, micro in size, and they need food to survive. This is as simple as that. If we do not have the food for them, then they will die down on its own. Now, the current problem is basically a problem of toxemia, which globally it is a problem. We all are suffering from the toxemia, and the reason is overstimulation of our pleasure and suppression of pains. So these two things engages our vitality more than what it is needed, and that actually reduces the elimination, and reduction in the elimination means retaining of the toxin in the body, and retaining of the toxin will invite these kind of discomforting situation and will invite the microorganism, which will name as infection. This is the clear-cut proposition of the cellular theory, which came after almost 2 decades of germ theory. Germ theory was proposed by Louis Pasteur, one French scientist, and the cellular theory was proposed by Antonio Beauchamp, another French scientist, a colleague of Louis Pasteur, and Louis Pasteur also in his deathbed agreed to the cellular theory. So by that time, people got confused with the germ theory concept and blaming the germ as the cause of the disease. That's the main confusion that we are suffering from. So it is a problem of the framework. The symptomatic problem is really identified, and it is due to the toxin, and overall toxins are growing up globally. We need to think about that, and sustainably we need to think. So when I say sustainably, that is not that when this coronavirus aspect, the coronavirus crisis so-called, is going down, then also we cannot take it very easily, because the toxin, if it is retained, then it is ongoing problem. Right, guys? So yeah, now I hand over to Victoria with the third subtopic. You can check on the discussion of the description of the live session. How does the body respond? We have a response system, not an immune system. Over to Victoria.
Thank you, Kalyan. I just want to add to that so that people are clear. So germ theory says that a perfectly healthy human being can be walking down a street and someone can sneeze on them or touch them, and the germ will go from one body to the next body, and that tiny little microorganism has the power to bring the perfectly healthy human body, which is a far more complex organism, to its knees and to death even. Whereas the cellular theory, or the terrain theory, says that the germ is not important. It is the terrain, it is the environment. And as Kalyan said, the first and foremost things any germ is going to look for is its food. If the food is not there, it cannot survive. And what is the food of the germs? As he said, the food of the germs is the toxins, is the breaking down waste material, or, virus, bacteria, whatever you want to call them. They're parasites and they live on decaying waste material. In a healthy organism, there's not a lot of that around. In a very sick, chronic human being, there's bucket loads of it. And so we will find the coronavirus present in these organisms, but why would we just single out one? If you took a blood sample, you'd find innumerable bacteria living in this particular person. So anyway, what happens when somebody who is a perfect host for any particular thing gets to a point where the level of toxemia, because, Nature Cure says we do not discount the fact that germs exist. Germs are the oldest living organisms on the planet. There is a myriad, innumerable germs floating around on this planet at any given moment. They're in everything, on everything. So we don't discount them, but we say that they can only ever be secondary to the disease process. And so if your body is full of waste material, then you are a perfect host for bacteria. And this is why we see that, the chronic people are the people who are getting this, are having problems and having the most severe issues going on at the moment. And when we talk, everybody's talking about immune system. In Nature Cure, we do not refer to the concept of an immune system at all. In Nature Cure, we say we have a response system, not an immune system. So what is the first and primary response of the organism when it's injured or when it's in a state of disease, when the toxemia in the bloodstream starts to rise? The body will respond in the same way. The body will respond by raising a fever. And this is where the problem lies. Medicine sees a fever as being something that's dangerous and we must stop it, whereas Nature Cure says, no, the fever is the healing process, and there is nothing safer than a properly managed fever. So, the body responds. If you'll notice quite often when somebody has a major trauma, for example, my son a few years ago came home from school and he'd had a major knock to his head that day at school. He had a great big lump on his head and he was very shaken, and I knew there was going to be a problem. So I got him home, and within a few hours, I looked for a fever straight away. Within a few hours, sure enough, he'd raised a fever, because the fever is the biological mechanism by which the body heals itself. Fever is heat. Heat is an increase in cellular activity. The body will be starting to break down waste material and send it to the organs of elimination at a much more rapid rate than it usually does. The fever is an extraordinary effort of the organism when it is needed. When it is needed. So we don't stop the fever. We let the fever run its process. And when a fever is properly managed, it never, ever, ever gets out of control. All of the problems we are seeing because the fever is being mismanaged. And, which brings me to my next subtopic is what happens when we suppress a fever? Well, people suppress fevers all the time. And the primary thing that happens when we suppress a fever, so the fever is the effort of the body to expel the toxins, to expel the waste materials, to get them out of the body. So if the body has entered into a fever and we do something to stop it, we take a medication, we keep eating, we keep going to work, we keep operating, doing everything, we just soldier on. If we do not conserve our energy, we will suppress the fever. And if we suppress the fever, we force the body to hold on to that waste material. And when it holds on to that waste material, you have got problems. When this goes on, when the body's in the process of the fever and the body is, administered drugs, and especially, this is when we see fevers getting out of control. This is when fevers go up very, very high, and when we see things like kidney failure, pneumonia, etc., setting in. So when we have a really, and remember, the people we are seeing dying at the moment are all chronically sick individuals. Everything you read in the media will tell you. You know, I saw a latest report out of Italy. Italy says that 99% of the people who have died have all got one or more chronic conditions in action. So that tells, absolutely. So from a nature cure point of view, we know that this person is a chronically sick, highly toxemic. This person's got huge volumes of toxic waste material in their systems. That's how we get to the chronic state. Suppression, 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 stopping the body every time. You know, we see people, so someone who's 70 years old, every single time in their lifetime that they raised a fever, they suppressed it. So for 70 years, they've been storing up this waste material, and they've got heart disease and diabetes and all sorts of chronic health conditions. This is what, and this person who is already highly compromised in their health then raises a fever because, we don't discount the bacteria. Yes, there's some bacteria going around. There always is bacteria going around. But the bacteria is what you call the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's the last little thing, and the body goes, right, the toxic load is so high now, I have to try to raise a fever here to get rid of this. Now, you take a very chronically sick person who's just raised a fever, whose body is in its effort is trying to offload some of this poison, because that's what it is, and you stop it with your
Victoria, can we say this, that the fever raised by the body is due to the toxin inside, not due to the microbes infestation?
Absolutely. And if you get a microbe infestation, they are there, and they are feeding. And of course, if they're feeding, they're excreting, and their excretia adds to more toxins in the body. Yes. So, we don't say that they're not there, and we don't say that yes, of course, if you get an overload of them and they're, excreting all their waste material, that's just going to make more toxicity in the bloodstream. So when the body goes into the fever, if you stop the fever in a very, very chronically sick person, then, the body is being forced to hold on to it. So the kidneys can only eliminate so much, and we're stopping them, we're forcing them to hold it. Then waste material will go to the lungs. And remember, not virtually, everybody that's dying is dying from pneumonia-like symptoms. And so what happens when the kidneys can't handle it? Liquid waste material starts to fill the lungs, and you can't breathe when liquid waste material starts to fill your lungs. And what we are seeing major organ failure. As soon as the lungs start to fill with liquid, they are failing straight away. And we will see, and if the body's not getting enough oxygen, then we'll see the heart become involved as well. And of course, we're going to have a shutdown of the organism, and death will ensue rapidly. So we are not saying there is no such thing as corona, and we are not saying that, these people have just got sick for no reason whatsoever. There's a myriad of reasons why these people are sick, and the interference and maltreatment of the fevers has a lot to do with what we're seeing going on right now. So from a nature cures point of view, Mr. Kenneth S. Jaffrey said, the greatest boon to suffering humanity is the properly managed fever. So what happens when you or one of your loved ones raises a fever, either now or if they come home from school and they've had a massive injury to their head, or if in 12 months' time you start to get a runny nose and a sore throat and a bit of a headache, and you take your temperature and, oh, you've got a fever. The response is the same. The management is the same always. As soon as you're up over 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius, you are in a fever, and you conserve your energy. Now, we conserve energy in 3 ways. The first thing is you go to bed. You lie down. You go and assume physical rest. The second way we do it is physiological rest. This means you don't eat anything. When you raise a fever, secretion is suspended. There is no digestive processes going on. In fact, when we have a fever, we have no hunger. And so eating when you have a fever is a wrong philosophy, and it consumes a lot of energy for the body to digest anything at any time, but especially when the body's in a fever. So we don't eat. We have no hunger present. We listen to the voice of the organism. And thirdly, and I would say, and my good colleague Kalyan, I'm sure, would also say, the most important way of resting the organism is mentally. We must rest mentally. I was talking to a client the other day and I said to that person, I want to put you into mental quarantine right now. I said, you must switch off the TV. I don't want you to listen to any more of this rubbish coming through the media. I want you to completely disconnect yourself. You know, the number one rule in my house is you never upset the sick person, ever. So we must mentally rest. We must keep that person calm and relaxed and not watching any of the rubbish going on the news or anything, and just let them rest mentally. And if we can rest physically, if we can rest physiologically, and if we can rest mentally, then we are doing our best for the organism. And the body is a self-healing mechanism. It initiated the fever. You didn't catch the fever. Your body raised it, and it raised it for a reason: self-preservation. And so you let the fever run its course. And when the fever runs its course, you will be healthier when it terminates. And it will terminate. It will stop. The fever will stop as soon as the need for it is no longer there. Don't think the fever is just going to go on and get worse and worse and worse. It never, ever, ever does. You know, I've never seen anyone under my care in 20-something years that have ever got out of control fevers, or it's got from one stage to getting worse to getting worse. When we see a progression that's down, a downward spiral from a fever, it's mismanagement. It's not the fever. It's mismanagement.
Yeah.
So now and obviously we must keep ourselves hydrated whilst we have a fever. So we've got to drink pure water. We do not dry fast ever. So drink according to the thirst of the organism when you're in a fever, just like you would do in normal life. And there are a couple of contraindications. The first thing I want to say is, if you are not familiar with the process, then the best thing you can do is put yourself in the care of, just like, I'm sick, I go to a doctor. Well, how about you're sick, you go to a qualified practitioner who knows exactly how to manage fevers correctly and can see you through the process. You do that a few times, you won't need the assistance of a professional ongoing, but you will need, we would highly advise you to do so for the first few. If there are any implants in the body, if there are breast implants, teeth implants, stents in the heart, plates in the ankles or knees from a broken arm or leg or, ankle or something like that, then you must never fast that person, certainly never past 3 days. And someone like that should absolutely always be under the care of a practitioner when they reach any point of health crisis. And the other contraindication to fasting is if somebody is on any kind of medication. So if you are on the contraceptive pill, you do not fast. If you are on insulin shots for diabetes or heart blood pressure medication or any kind of medication for any chronic disease, you must never fast that organism. That is extremely dangerous because metabolism increases. That's what the whole process of fever is. It increases metabolism. And so in the response of that, it also, when you take drugs into the system, when you're in a fever, their toxicity is much greater when you've been fasting, especially. So we must not take any, let somebody who is on any medications fast at all. So I'm going to hand back to you, Kalyan. Yep.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I request all the listeners and the audience of the session that you can just keep posting your questions. We'll be taking all the questions, whatever the time it takes, maybe. And I have a few questions also in my kitty, which I'll ask after we finish with the management. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, Victoria, on the contraindications, we were continuing. It's done already.
No,
Yeah.
well, that's about it, And maybe the last thing I should say is that anytime anyone's going into a fever, anyone contacts me, the first thing I ask them is, are the conditions correct? Are you in a situation where you can lie down, where you can, go to bed for a few days and fast? And is there someone who can care for you, who understands the process, who will continue to keep you at home and nurse you through this, and not be likely to call an ambulance if they think there's a problem? If that happens, there may be intravenous drugs administered, and that can be very dangerous. So, always it's best to be under the care of a competent practitioner. But, I can assure you, 60 years of practice as a naturopath, Mr. Kenneth S. Jaffrey, 30 years, Mr. Kevin Hinton, 30 years, the beautiful Miss Katie Hinton. These people have been my direct teachers, all have, myself. None of us once ever have lost anyone to fever. Never. And none of us have ever had any fever get out of control where we've needed to call in any outside assistance or whatever, because there is nothing safer than a properly managed fever. The body will never do anything to harm itself. That is, the law of self-preservation. We don't catch a fever, we raise a fever. The fever is the response of the organism. Never forget that. It is the response of the organism, and it is right action, and we do not suppress it. Suppress it at your peril. And what we're seeing right now is suppressed fevers of highly chronic individuals, and this is what we can expect. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
over to you,
we are getting
Kalyan. So
questions also now.
what should people be doing now, Kalyan?
Yeah. So that's definitely the last subtopic. We'll take it on the flow. Let's take some questions. We get a question from Jayaraman. The question is, I'll just repeat for the recorded version also. Uh, this is a big challenge. In fact, where do we find a nature cure professional for guidance in case of serious fever? Right.
Well,
So that's a challenge. Victoria, would you like to comment on that?
Well, that is a challenge. There is a number of us. There are a number of us nature cure practitioners. I don't know in India how many people over there are qualified to, who properly manage fevers, but certainly there is myself. There is a number of practitioners here in Australia, Kalyan. But at the end of the day, if someone came to me who was already in a fever, I would be I'd have to be very cautious to assist them, because of the laws that are the best thing to do is to get yourself into a good state of health, and you'll best do that by coming under the care of a nature cure practitioner before we raise fevers. I mean, anybody who I work with, because I'm a diagnostician, but then I'm an educator, and that's what all nature cure practitioners should be. They diagnose and they educate. We educate people exactly what's going to go, because once we've done a diagnosis, we know what they can expect when they raise a fever. We prepare them for the fever. We educate them as to what's going to go on, and we are there to oversee them as they go through it. So I think maybe we need to get some sort of a registry together of people who are capable of doing this, but unfortunately there's not one of those at the moment.
One thing just I'd like to share that we are planning to launch some professional training courses in this year only, by the end of this year. So that will again bring some population under the pure nature cure understanding and practice. So till the time, we are available online at your disposal, and primarily the pure nature cure recommendations are the same. Rest yourself as much as possible. Even if you don't have access to the pure nature cure practitioner, it is not a rocket science to understand. It is just because of the discomforts, we have the cognitive understanding problem at that point in time of fever. That time we need support. For that purpose, practitioner is recommended. But in case you don't have, just stick to the resting protocols. Right. So we have a few more questions. Yes. I'll just pass on the question to you, Victoria. The question is, in case someone is suspected to be COVID infected, COVID-19, that means coronavirus disease
Yes,
infected,
yes, yes.
is the treatment of the same as the ordinary fever, cough, cold, headache, etc.? Excellent question. Over to you, Victoria.
Excellent question. And the answer is an absolutely resounding yes. The treatment is exactly the same because, and this is what it is. It's just a fever. With a fever, we get a raise in heat. And as I say to my clients, I said, you are never going to get just a raise in heat. You are always going to get accompanying symptoms. You're going to get sore throat. You're going to get swollen glands. You're going to get a cough. You're going to get aches and pains throughout the body. You're going to feel really tired. Really tired. You're going to have to, lie down, go to bed, listen to the voice of the organism. But these are the same. If you go back in history and you look at the symptoms that, swine flu, the symptoms of Spanish flu, the symptom of all of the pandemics, epidemics in history, they're all the same. All the same. Bird flu, you name it. What is it? Fever, sore throat, cough, aches and pains, sometimes vomiting, sometimes skin rash. The symptoms will vary according to the particular person and how chronic they are, and their hereditary strengths and weaknesses, and where the toxic load is. So, rash is very common, but not to be frightened. The scary thing is when you suppress that rash, when you put something on the skin or take something to stop the skin. The skin is an eliminative organ, and if it's opening up and pushing the poisons out, then it's right action. We don't stop it. We let it drain, because that's what's going on. The body is draining through the skin, and it is right action. So if somebody is diagnosed with COVID-19 and they raise a fever and they've got a sore throat and they've got sore muscles and they're feeling really tired, they go to bed. They rest physically. Don't feed them. They're not going to be hungry. They don't have any appetite whatsoever. Stop feeding these people. Give them some pure water to drink as thirst indicates, and get them to rest mentally. Tell them it's okay. It's not a problem. This is going to pass. Calm them. Make them feel confident. That is the most important thing you can do. Get fear out of the equation. Fear is absolutely gripping the planet at the moment.
Right. So we have the next question. How do we initiate physiological rest during a fever? Fasting and resting physically is understood. So fasting is the physiological rest, Kedar. So Kedar is the person who raised this question. Yeah. So anything additional?
Yes, well, see, people think, there's some magic in fasting. There's no magic in fasting, and fasting, as I say to everyone I'm working with, fasting is not about not eating. Fasting is about rest. And all we're doing when we cease eating for a few days, remember, it's going to be, if you stop eating, it's going to be quite a long time before you drop dead from starvation. If you stop eating when there is no hunger present, that is the right response. Not feeding people food that they are not capable of digesting and they have no hunger for. That's what happens in every hospital around this country. I'm going to tell you that much. So how do we instigate physiological rest? We just stop eating. It's as simple as that. You have no hunger, don't eat. And when hunger returns is when you return to eating.
Right. Another question from Veena.
The body will tell you. Yeah, the body will tell you when it needs food. Don't worry about that. Survival is its most basic instinct.
So Binal asks if diabetic implant patient, etc., should not fast during fever, what could they do?
Well, someone like that, we would still rest them as best as possible, but we wouldn't fast that person. We would keep, remember, the whole thing about fasting is about rest. And why is it about rest? Because all we need to do to get the body to heal is to conserve its nerve force, conserve its energy. And so someone like that, we would send them to bed. we would keep them on as light a diet as possible. Bit of light fruit, bit of fruit juice, something like that. Keep them mentally resting as well. But we wouldn't take them off all food because we need something to dilute the medication that they're on. And you do not ever take somebody off medication who is on medication. You don't go, oh, this person's raised a fever, we'll stop insulin today. That will kill the person. So, someone who is in a chronic state of disease needs to come under the care of a nature cure practitioner and have a diagnosis done and instigate a program of health recuperation, during which time withdrawal from medication will absolutely happen, and their health will return and they won't have to worry about that. Unfortunately, when it comes to implants, well, if a woman comes to me with breast implants, I say to her, you must take those implants out and come back and see me afterwards, because anything that is implanted in the body's going to be expending nerve energy to get rid of it. So there are some times when people can't get rid of the implants, and that is absolutely the case. And so we do our best with those people. We will never get someone who has implants to the best state of health possible, but we will certainly get them to a much better state than they are in when they first present to us. Okay?
Right. Yeah. So another question quite similar from Dhruv. How should patients who already have high blood pressure, arthritis-like disease deal with fever? It's difficult to convince them given they are on medicines since years. Now, see, under certain condition, we need to look for the best possible conservation of vitality.
Yes.
So this is very important. Like if you don't have access to the nature cure practitioner or diagnostician to help you out, then also you must understand, number one, the body is taking up the right decision at the right time. Number two, the conservation of the vitality is the primary. Conservation of energy is the primary. Whatever you choose to do during fever, just ask yourself, is it necessary to do? If you can bargain on that, just do that. Don't deplete your vitality unnecessary when it is needed to be conserved. That's the whole framework. Now another question from Nandini. So general isolation of public is absurd, isn't it? Is it not? After all, there is less toxemia, there is no food for microbes. Well, Nandini, here the objective is not to criticize the overall understanding, the universal understanding which is going on globally. Now, try and understand, that's the subtopic, the last subtopic which I was going to take up, that at this moment what to do, right? So we can categorize ourselves seeing our discomfort level, that we are under discomfort or not. If we are under discomfort, if we have symptomatic discomforts like fever, flu, the throat soreness or all those symptoms, then whatever the protocol being proposed as of now is absolutely in sync with nature cure protocols. Just go to bed, isolate yourself, quarantine yourself. That will increase your conserved vitality and recuperation level, right? Just that the mental framework you just open up, that your body is doing the best. Under any circumstances, the body is doing the best. That's the main objective of this session. Change the framework. Do whatever you are doing, quarantining or isolating, that's absolutely fine. But if you change your framework, okay, can you hear me? There was some interruption. Can you hear me back? People, can you just respond? Can you hear me? Do you hear me? Can I have some quick responses if you can hear me? Okay, great. So continuing the comment on that, whether this general isolation is absurd or not. So now, number one is that if you are infected, definitely you should quarantine yourself. That will conserve your vitality more, and that will help you to recuperate faster. Now, if you are not
Absolutely.
affected, if you are not identifying any discomfort, will you disobey this isolation? The answer is absolutely no, because that conflict will increase your vitality engagement. When you are in a system, this national system, the global systems that we have as human being have created, that has got some rationale beneath it, which may be modified over time. But if we wish to change that system, the conflict is not the way, because being isolated is not a big problem for you. Just obey the systematic proposal, isolate yourself, but the framework, again, work on the framework that you are not fearful in this state, and that will conserve a lot of vitality. So that's the two cases. One is you are infected, diagnosed as infected, and other is you are not infected. In both the cases, you just work on the framework that your body will respond to the situation as it is needed under the circumstances. Let's not suppress it. Yeah, Victoria, anything you want to add?
So, I don't know if
On the general
Nandine
isolation.
was it. Yeah. Well, what I can say to you is, if you are a healthy person who is living the natural life according to the dictates of what a human being should be living like, then, if you live according to the laws of nature cure, you have nothing to fear. You are not going to catch a germ or virus that is going to cause you any ill health. Remember, as we said at the very, very start, these germs or these viruses will only proliferate where their food is present. And if you live according to the natural laws of nature, so what is that? We live on a plant-based diet, natural living foods. We make sure we get into the sunshine every day. If you are being quarantined, get into the sun. We drink pure water according to thirst. We breathe fresh air. Turn your air conditioners off, open your windows up, breathe as much, make sure fresh air is in your rooms as much as possible. Sleep in fresh air. We use rest and relaxation. We make sure that we are resting and getting enough rest for the organism every day. Okay, we bring the pressure down off the nervous system by resting. And sleep is perfect rest, so we make sure we get a good 8-hour solid sleep every night. If you're not sleeping solidly for 8 hours every night, you've got health problems. Okay? Spine, we must make sure the spine is in correct alignment. We make sure, so we go to a spinal practitioner, we get the spine adjusted according if there's some issues. If you work with a nature cure practitioner, you'll know more about that. And lastly, but most importantly, the last of the 8 requirements, the 8 physiological necessities, biological necessities for the health of the human organism, because that's what those are. There's 8 of them. The last one is mental poise, and really it should be the first one because it's the most important one of the lot, because we lose so much energy, so much vitality through irrational mental processes. This whole campaign that's going on at the moment, what it's doing is everybody is frightened, and so we are being innervated by this fear. So we need to cut ourselves off from that. There is nothing to fear whatsoever. You are not going to catch this disease. You are not going to die. And even if you do get sick, you're going to raise a fever, you're going to let it run its course, and all will be well. In a few months' time, hopefully sooner rather than later, all of these restrictions will be lifted, and we should hopefully go back to as close a normal life as possible. This is not going to go on forever. So now is the time. Clean your own house. That means your own body. Make sure you are living in accordance with the laws of natural health. Do not worry about anything else. If you are living according to the way the human organism should live, then health is the only possible outcome. It is not rocket science, it is science. It's pure science. And that's why Nature Cure works every time for everybody that that implements nature cure, they will be well, because there is no other possible. Well, first thing we do is we look to causes and we remove causes. We remove the cause, we
Yeah,
provide
Victoria,
the eight requirements for health, and then we let the body rest when it raises a fever. Simple.
Victoria, I would like to hear your comment on the carrier. Like there is a conception
Oh,
called carrier, that if you are not infected, you can be a potential carrier of the microbes. So what is your take on that?
my take on that is it's the most ludicrous proposition ever, and I cannot believe that people even believe that that's a possibility. You cannot, firstly, I want to say, if coronavirus or any other virus for that matter is the cause of the disease, then if I get it, if you get it, if your child gets it, whoever gets it, they will get sick because that germ causes the disease. To say someone is carrying it but is not sick and they're just a carrier is just a ludicrous proposition. If the food is there for the body, if your body is full of waste material and the food for the disease is there, this concept of carrier proves that their theory is wrong, absolutely wrong. Because if this virus is the cause of the disease, then anybody carrying the disease, that virus, would be sick. You can't have people getting sick from if the germ is the cause, you can't have some people get sick from it but not others. That just blows their whole theory out of the water to start with. If you are carrying, you're only going to carry the disease if the conditions are right for you to carry that virus. And if you're carrying that virus in your bloodstream, you can only do so because there's food there for the blimmin' virus to live off. And if there's food there for the virus to live off, you are a chronically sick person. You have lots of waste material in your bloodstream. And if you're someone who's only mildly toxemic, your body will raise a fever straight away and throw it out. And there will be there is just no such thing as someone walking around on the face of the earth who happens to have the virus in their bloodstream and no idea that they've got it.
Right.
If indeed it's actually
Another question, will the management change? Will the management change in case of children?
No, definitely not. It'll be quicker. If your child raises a fever, they'll go down for a couple of days. You manage you fast them. If it's a baby that's breastfeeding, it's different and you need to see a practitioner. But if we're talking about a fully weaned child that raises a fever, you send them to bed. You go and hop into bed with them, because you've got to keep that child calm and wrap them up in your arms and stroke their head and tell them everything's going to be fine and the pain is going to be gone really soon, and you keep them calm and you take them off their food for 1 day, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, depending on how much waste material they have on their bloodstream, but it will pass really, really quickly. Then you bring them back on a very light diet for a couple of days, just maybe a bit of fruit, and your little child will be running around the backyard in no time. Children respond rapidly. They have such high vitality. They're not going to be sick for very long.
Yeah. So
Has anybody
how does it transmit from sick to others?
Can I
how
just
does
say?
It yes, please.
One last thing I want to say in relation to that. Has anybody noticed how no children are getting sick? No children are dying? Of course not, because the germ is not the problem. It's the bodies that is the problem. It's no children are getting dying. There's no problems with the kids here. Schools are still open in a huge part of the world. Here in Australia, I mean, all the schools are still open. We know the children aren't going to have the problem here. So yeah. They're young, they're healthy, they've got good quality.
Answer that the toxin is the reason. So yeah. So another question, I think it was covered, but then also let me address it. How does it transmit from the sick to others? How does it transmit from sick to others? So it's the same. The condition, if are available, the condition is the toxin in your body. If it is available, from one sick person to another sick person, it will be transmitting. So the primary cause, let's just clear our framework. The primary cause is the availability of the toxin in the body, and be it corona or anything, we will have the problem if we contain the toxin. As simple as
Absolutely. It
that.
doesn't matter what name they want to give it. You know, and there will be another one, and it'll have a different name. But you mark my words. What will be the symptoms? Fever, sore throat, aching joints, tired. The same symptoms, same response of the organism, but they'll tell it's a different one this time. Oh, it's a different one this time. Yeah, we'll be frightened. So we get it's just craziness. So, separate yourself from the craziness. Take control of your own health.
Yeah, so a lot of
Understand.
questions I have, Victoria, for you. The first question is, yeah. If Corona is a hoax, then why so much of preparedness now? As the individual is actually a BDO. BDO is a bureaucratic post. Our collector has asked us to prepare temporary medical centers for 50 to 100 people having. So he's questioning the preparedness, whether it is irrational or not.
Well, it's fully rational because they're going to get sick people, and the sick people, somebody's going to feel unwell. They're going to go, oh, this coronavirus thing's going around, better go into the hospital. And then they'll be, when people go into the medical system, they get treated medically. So then we'll see the corresponding responses of the organism once the organism is already sick and then gets treated with medicine. That's what we're seeing. So nobody's going into a medical facility and being put somewhere nice and quiet and rested and taken off their food and kept mentally calm. None of that's going on in any of these wards. It's crazy. I was reading something the other day how noisy these wards are with all these machines going beep 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 beep. Like nobody's getting rest. Nobody's body's being left alone. They're having drugs administered, etc. We're not seeing the effects of some little germ. We're seeing the effects of the treatment.
Right. The next question is if internal hygiene's conservation of vitality is maintained and we have sufficient conserved vitality, can it counter corona? Simple question.
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. Nothing to worry about. Zero. Corona or anything else for that matter.
Right. So next question is, if anyone does get the symptoms that are stated for coronavirus, or let's say the presence of the virus in the body is confirmed, in such a situation, the government says that one should not get oneself admitted in a government hospital, whereas as per NC, there are different protocols that needs to be followed being at home. For example, being in the sun, fasting. How does one deal with this dual situation? So here I must request you to understand the acute condition and the chronic condition. During the acute condition, your just responsibility is the rest. If the government is asking not to get admitted in hospital, best for you, because you are not, you will not be subject to any suppression. So take care of yourself by resting physically, physiologically, and psychologically. Rest. So at the time of acute, you need not to go for the sun basking. You need not to go for the exercising. Just rest yourself. As simple as that.
Fully rest.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Anything from your side, Victoria?
Yeah, absolutely. If you suspect you have corona or you have any symptoms, which let's face this is just a fever, and the typical symptoms with fever, just rest. Go, stay at home. The best place for you is at home. You are going to get a lot more rest at home than you are going to get in a noisy, bustling hospital ward. Rest physically, rest physiologically, rest mentally. Keep your windows open, lots of fresh air in there. Keep yourself warm. Don't let yourself get cold. Wrap yourself up and go to bed for a few days and you'll be over it like that.
Right. So a few questions from Arvinder. General public thinks wearing mask and sanitizing hands is good enough and they are partying at home. What is your take on that?
Yeah, you just got to come back to the philosophy. You know, do we believe that the germ is causing the disease, or do we believe the germ is there because the body is diseased already? And so we in Nature Cure believe in the theory of toxemia. Medicine believes in the theory of the germs. You know, we are diametrically opposite. Of course, we need to keep good hygiene. We want to make sure, you know, you don't go outside and have all sorts of garbage on your hands and then go home and eat your lunch. You know, keep yourself hygiene. You know, keeping yourself clean is part of Nature Cure. But you do not need to wear a mask, that's for sure. Don't worry about the mask part. No one's going to transfer something. If you're a healthy human being, there's no possible way somebody's going to transfer something to you that's going to cause you health problems.
Right. The next question is, in simple words, why should people with medical issues like diabetes be more careful? So the simple reason is they are more toxic and they are prone to get infected very easily. That's why these are being proposed. So we need to work on the toxin again, not on the infection as we get. Yeah. Next is, this is just a wake up call. How should people corona proof themselves for the future? So this is a comment, and this is
great
actually
comment.
corona proof will limit the possibilities of the framework. How we can guarantee our health. This is a wake up call for sure. I personally consider that the current global situation is highly toxic situation. So this is a wake up call to wake up ourselves and to understand that the toxin is leading us to a state of bad health, and we need to be consistent in reversing it. Now, the question that I just shared on government admission, Gauri rephrased this, that she is saying that government is asking to get admitted in the government hospital. So what to do that? How to follow the protocols in that situation? So now, if it is a systematic enforcement, Gauri, then we should not go in the conflict. We should go ahead with our strong conviction in our body, and we should do the best under any certain situation that are there around us. So if you are allowed to stay at home, just rest yourself as much as possible, as we discussed right now. If you are enforced to get admitted in the hospital, since there is no medicine still introduced, you are safe in the hospital also. You just do your best under that circumstances. Victoria.
Yes, absolutely. Try and stay at home. Definitely.
No, the question is, if they are enforced to get admitted in hospital, how to manage that situation?
It's a very difficult thing to give out blanket advice to somebody who's going into the medical system. You know, it leaves me very exposed legally as well. But at the end of the day, if you understand the principles of Nature Cure, if you understand what's going on in the organism, you've raised a fever, the body's doing, this is right action, you know, go into the hospital and, you know, hopefully you'll be able to avoid medication, but, you know, you've got to do your best and that's what Nature Cure is anyway. We do our best on any given day under any circumstances. You know, I hope people will be able, here in Australia, people are saying, here in Australia, the directive is, if you are feeling unwell, if you have a fever, a sore throat, whatever, you know, and your symptoms are mild, and you feel you can manage it at home, that is the directive here in Australia. The directive here in Australia is to stay home and you know, you will get better in a few days. They know you're going to get, even the main medical directive here in Australia is that you're going, you know, if your symptoms are mild, it will pass. You know, I'm seeing on the news every night they're showing, you know, like timelines of people who are going through it, who've been at home and self-isolated and going through it. You know, they're getting a bit of a fever, they're getting a bit of a sore throat, they're getting a few muscle aches, they're going to bed feeling a bit exhausted for a few days, which is always what happens when we raise a fever. And in a couple of days, they're good again. You know, like you know, no one is suffering from anything. You know, this is just a standard fever. It's nothing more, it's nothing less. You know, if you do the right things, stay at home, rest physically, rest physiologically, rest mentally, keep yourself hydrated according to bodily thirst, keep your windows open, keep yourself warm. It's going to be over in no time. If that changes, then that's a different, circumstance. But, the only person that's going to change for is someone who's chronically ill.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria,
Yeah.
for this explorative comment. Guys, the situation is such that if you have to be quarantined, so focus on resting yourself
Yeah.
the best possible, and that's the
Absolutely.
opportunity that you get to rest yourself. Change the
Yeah.
framework from fear to some
Yeah.
awareness about your
Yeah.
body. The body does the best always and all the ways. Right?
Always.
So yeah.
If you are forced to be in quarantine, like I work, how long have I, just about everybody I work with, all I want to do is get them some time off work where they can go home and rest, like, yay, every dark cloud has a silver lining. Finally, it's okay for us to stay home. Finally, it's okay for us to take some days off and spend it in bed and rest and recuperate ourselves. So if you have to stay home, yay, wonderful. You get some time out. You get some downtime. You get to rest. If you're somewhere where you can get out, and if you're not sick, go out into the sun in the morning, get some sunshine, get the fresh air, eat lightly, give your body some well-earned rest. It's for a lot of people, really, that's going to be a positive for everyone. Read those books you've been wanting to read for ages and, do a few things around. It's a great thing for humanity that we actually finally allowed to take a bit of time out. Shame we had to do it under the guise of some, deadly, supposedly virus. So turn it around to a positive.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and don't go for any kind of conflict, whatsoever it may be. Don't buy the conspiracy theories happening around and all those stuff. It is just the confusion that are affecting the mankind as a whole, and the confusion is going to be erased sooner. And just focus onto your health and conservation of the vitality as much as possible. And we'll keep on coming live, and I'm launching another online online workshop next weekend, not this Saturday, Sunday, but next to like on 28th and 29th, I'll be having a 2 days workshop on complete philosophy. And if time permits, then Victoria also may join in those few of the sessions for her comments.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll be coming. These kind of live sessions will be coming again.
Hopefully we'll get some technology. We'll sort technology out so we can both come to you via Facebook instead of this setup.
Can you see the screen now, Victoria? You are visible on the Facebook. Also, you are visible through the Skype.
Oh, lovely.
Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yes. Yeah, I can see it. So, let's eliminate the fear that, this isn't, there is nothing out of the normal right now. The only thing that's out of normal right now is the perception and the people, it's been it's the wrong philosophy of health, and it's being mismanaged, and we're seeing the results of it. But we're seeing the results of, this is how the system works. We have the highest rate of chronic disease in the history of the human species. We have the highest rate of infertility in the history of the human species. We are sicker than we have ever been in the history of the human species. And so just like at times of, where there's been a famine or coming out of a world war, when there's been a reduction in the health of the human organism for a long time, we see things like this. We see people getting really sick a lot more, and this is not surprising. It's going to probably happen again in not such a distant time. We have to change our philosophy of health. We have to start with the body first. It's not the germ, it's It's the quality of the tissue. It's the quality of the blood. You know, whenever I see someone who comes to me, I say, it's not because you're not getting enough nutrients. It's not because you've got any germs in your system. It's because your body is loaded with waste material, and we need to get you to drain and get rid of this. And my clients all get well, all of them, because they follow the correct advice, and this is pure science, and it works for everyone because we get people to live according to the laws of life that govern the health of the human organism. We are not, you know, we are so far removed in the way we live from the way we need to live for health. And we you know, one thing I have thought is maybe another good thing that might come out of this whole thing is people might start to think about their own health. People might start to look after themselves a bit better. You know, I say to people, health is what you do every day. It's not, we can't go around and flout all the rules and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and alcohol and eat white bread and white rice and cooked food and meat, and, you know, when we get sick, take something to stop our body from doing what it's doing, and just keep soldering on, and just, we are just on a trajectory for sickness at the moment. We need to turn that around. We need to start living in health. We need to stop thinking that there's going to be someone who's going to come up with some sort of a cure. You know, the only cure, health is not about cure, it's about prevention. It's about living healthfully. And I say to people, if you want to be healthy, then you have to live healthfully. And then I say, my apologies. Because people want you to get them well. I don't get anybody well. I tell them what they need to do. If they do what I tell them to do, they get well, because there's nothing other that's possible. But you cannot, you know, get well if you do not stop doing the things that are making you sick. So on that note,
hit the cause.
Yep. Remove the cause. Absolutely. Live according to the laws of health for the human organism, and you will never need to fear anything for yourself, your children, no one.
Right. So I'd like to have a closing remark quoting the French scientist who introduced the germ theory. So in his deathbed, he said to another colleague of him, Bernard, who was supporting cellular theory, that Bernard, you were right. Microbes are nothing. The terrain is everything. So let's take care of our terrain, which is the body and the toxin level.
The tissue. Yep.
Yes.
And ignore,
so with that,
ignore the microbes.
Yes. Ignore the microbes. Yeah. So microbe is not the cause. It is just the effects. Just rest well and conserve vitality as much as possible. Right, Victoria, you can wave the audience and we can just end the session.
Goodbye. Thank you for hanging in there. Sorry about our technological problems. We're going to sort Facebook out and come to you properly next time.
Bye.
And don't fear. There's nothing to fear. All right. All the best to everybody. All the best in your health and happiness.
Yeah. So I'll end the Skype call also. I've ended upload in HD share. So I'll end this call or reconnect again. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.